Understanding action potential. The steps involved in nerve impulse transmission. Hello, welcome to the Science Guide ASAP Learning. Today we are going to be speaking about an action potential. Hope this helps. Please support this new channel by liking this video and subscribing for more videos like this one. An action potential is a brief electrical impulse that travels along a nerve cell, allowing for the transmission of information throughout the body. It is an important process that underlies many bodily functions, including movement, sensation, and thought. Understanding the steps of an action potential is crucial for understanding how nerve cells communicate with each other and how the body functions as a whole. In this video, we will explore the steps involved in an action potential and their significance in the body. Resting membrane potential. Resting membrane potential refers to the difference in electrical charge across the plasma membrane of a neuron when it is not receiving any signals. The resting potential of a neuron is typically -70 millivolts, meaning that the interior of the neuron is negatively charged relative to the outside. This difference in electrical charge is due to the uneven distribution of ions across the membrane, with positively charged ions, such as sodium and potassium, being more abundant outside the cell, and negatively charged ions, such as chloride, being more abundant inside the cell. The electrical gradient across the membrane is represented graphically as a flat line on an action potential graph, indicating that there is no change in electrical charge at rest. Understanding resting membrane potential is important for understanding the subsequent steps involved in an action potential. Depolarization. Depolarization is the first step in the process of an action potential. It is the rapid change in the electrical charge across the membrane of a neuron, from negative to positive. This occurs due to the influx of positively charged ions, mainly sodium ions, into the neuron through ion channels. During depolarization, the voltage-gated sodium channels open in response to the depolarizing stimulus, allowing the influx of sodium ions into the cell, leading to a rapid change in the membrane potential. The influx of sodium ions makes the intracellular environment more positively charged compared to the extracellular environment, causing a reversal of the electrical gradient across the membrane. The graphical representation of depolarization shows a rapid increase in the membrane potential from the resting membrane potential towards a positive value, which is the threshold potential required for the generation of an action potential. Threshold. Threshold refers to the minimum stimulus required to trigger an action potential. Once the depolarization reaches a certain threshold, it triggers the opening of voltage-gated sodium channels on the cell membrane. These channels allow a rapid influx of positively charged sodium ions, further depolarizing the membrane. This rapid change in potential leads to the generation of an action potential. The threshold level is represented on the graph of an action potential as a point where the upward slope begins to steepen significantly. Action potential. An action potential is a rapid change in the electrical potential across a cell membrane that occurs in response to a stimulus. This process involves the movement of ions, specifically the influx of positively charged ions like sodium, Na+, and calcium, Ca2+, and the efflux of positively charged ions like potassium, K+, out of the cell. During an action potential, the depolarization of the cell membrane reaches a threshold potential, triggering the opening of voltage-gated sodium channels. This allows Na+ ions to flow into the cell, causing a rapid change in membrane potential and the initiation of an action potential. This influx of Na+ ions continues until the membrane potential reaches a peak, at which point the voltage-gated sodium channels close and voltage-gated potassium channels open, allowing K+ ions to exit the cell. This repolarizes the membrane potential and restores the resting membrane potential. Graphically, the action potential is represented by a characteristic waveform consisting of several phases, including depolarization, overshoot, repolarization, and hyperpolarization. The depolarization phase is characterized by a rapid rise in membrane potential, while the overshoot phase represents the peak membrane potential during the action potential. The repolarization phase is characterized by the restoration of the resting membrane potential, and the hyperpolarization phase is characterized by a brief period of increased negativity in the membrane potential. Understanding the steps involved in the action potential is crucial for understanding how nerve cells communicate and how electrical signals are transmitted in the nervous system. Repolarization. Repolarization refers to the restoration of the negative membrane potential after an action potential. During repolarization, potassium ions move out of the cell, which causes the membrane potential to return to its resting state. This process prepares the neuron for the next action potential. The graphical representation of repolarization shows a sharp downward spike as the membrane potential returns to its negative resting state. Understanding the process of repolarization is important in understanding the complete cycle of an action potential. Refractory period. The refractory period is the period of time during which a neuron cannot generate a new action potential. There are two types of refractory periods: the absolute refractory period and the relative refractory period. During the absolute refractory period, the neuron is completely unresponsive to stimuli. This is because the voltage-gated sodium channels that were activated during depolarization are inactivated and cannot be opened again until the membrane potential returns to resting levels. During the relative refractory period, the neuron can generate a new action potential, but only in response to a stronger than normal stimulus. This is because the membrane potential is hyperpolarized due to the efflux of potassium ions during repolarization. The length of the refractory period is important for controlling the frequency and timing of action potentials. It ensures that action potentials are propagated in only one direction and that they do not overlap or interfere with each other. Graphically, the refractory period is represented as a period of time on the action potential graph during which the membrane potential is unable to generate another action potential, as the voltage-gated sodium channels are inactivated. In conclusion, understanding the steps of an action potential is crucial for understanding the communication within the nervous system. The resting membrane potential, depolarization, threshold, action potential, repolarization, and refractory period are all important steps that work together to generate and propagate an electrical signal. By studying the action potential, we can better understand how neurons communicate with one another and how this process can be affected in certain neurological conditions. It is important to continue learning about the intricacies of neural communication and to appreciate the complex processes involved in the functioning of the nervous system. Hope this helps. Please support this new channel by liking this video and subscribing for more videos like this one.